once I hit record back there,
Okay.
and you can start.
Just like that.
Yeah. That's all the paperwork.
Oh, my goodness,
Oh,
I'm
Lord.
sure.
Okay, guys. Countdown? Well, before you do countdown, just wanna say one thing, break a leg.
Yeah.
You'll see.
Have I told you lately that I love you? Can I tell you once again somehow? Have I told you lately that I love you? Judge Pendery, well, Judge Pendery, we're telling you right now. God bless you, and boy, I tell you what, I'm tickled to have Judge Steve Pendery on with us today on Are You Ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? Where have you been? Where are you going? What are you seeking? And are you ready? Are you ready to be county judge executive another how many years? About 19 years now?
Yes, sir.
And are you ready to deal with all the problems of the citizens and the county governments and the planning and the state and the federal? My Lord, you're like a man looking at a puzzle with 1,000 pieces to put them all together to make it work, right?
That's right, but it can be satisfying.
It can be
and,
satisfying.
And fulfilling if you have the right approach to it.
That's right, that's absolutely right. And today we're going to discuss that, as well as Are You Ready for the Lord? We're going to discuss that here with Judge Pendery in Campbell County, Kentucky. And we're going to get a little different perspective than what we had from Judge Gary Moore in Boone County, because Boone County, of course, has sitting in the center of it, of the three counties, Kenton County, and we'll have Judge Chris Knockelman on at a later date here. He's already scheduled. And then today we got what I call the historic corner, the county that both Kenton County and Boone County came from.
That's right, and I remind those two guys of that.
Yeah.
I think we have surveyors out there, and we're prepared to take over if necessary.
That's right, and history is the light to the future, and so being an old history teacher, I started to look at those things, and I remember, bless his soul, Andy Jolly. Andy Jolly, what a human being. And he gave me the history of Campbell County, standing down there in front of the old courthouse. And I remember how he worked so hard to get those golf courses and county parks started, didn't he?
He did. We have what is often described as the largest county park in the state. I don't know if that's still true or not, but I'm going to say it anyway. And interesting that you bring that up, and I didn't prompt you to do so, but Terry Jolly has been the golf pro at A.J. Jolly Park his whole career, and we're having a retirement ceremony for him tonight. He's the longest tenured county employee, a wonderful guy, and he is golf in Campbell County and probably for a lot of people across northern Kentucky. So
Well,
we stumbled right into something.
Stumbled
out of
right
the
into
gate.
something. Now, what time is that
Really?
tonight, and where is it?
Well, there's actually a golf outing this afternoon, and then we'll have a reception for Terry, and we're gonna name the road from US 27 up to our pro shop and clubhouse, Terry Jolly Way, and honor Terry and Lisa Jolly. They lived at the golf course for many, many years, and it's an idyllic spot. But there are responsibilities that come with living on the golf course
Oh,
too.
yeah.
I mean, they were our own sort of free security service, and Lisa was there close at hand. If anything was needed, she could step into the concession stand. She worked the concession stand, and it was a fabulous deal for county residents to have them living at the park, and to have them as the golf pro and the first lady of golf has been a wonderful thing.
Absolutely, and that brings me to one of my keen topics, Judge, in Campbell County. The smartest move I ever made was marrying a Guyman girl.
Yeah.
In
Well-
fact, she's back there running the cameras right now.
Well, and she could probably delete whatever you say that's unfortunate, right? So, keep you square, but, yeah, you married into one of the biggest families in Campbell County.
In Campbell County, and you know, you're talking about Terry Jolly there. I can remember all those years when little Jimmy Guyman, bless his soul, was, killed in an automobile accident right there on Pools Creek Road, which we
Right,
got
the
named.
Guyman Connector.
The Guyman Connector.
Yes, sir.
When I was Deputy Secretary of Transportation, I had a little influence back in those days and got that done, not just for Jimmy, but for the Guyman family, who, their original homestead, the stone house there on Bulls Creek Road, where the grandpa and grandma lived, next to where Jim Guyman, Jimmy's mom and dad, Jim and Rose Guyman, lived there on the same road. And, but all of those years, for many years, they had the golf outing out there at, Andy Jolly Golf Course and raised funds for scholarships for students from Campbell County High School and the other high schools in the area. And Terry Jolly and his family absolutely did a beautiful job. And I can remember out there with the great personality from radio, Gary Burbank,
Oh, yeah.
and having great time with him on the
Oh,
golf
yeah,
course.
he's amazing.
Oh, just amazing, wonderful fellow. And, but those are some great times, and that's really what you wanna see in life, is, things like that. We're lifting people up, having a good time, doing good, positive things. And to have a golf course like that, and as well as Kenton County and Campbell and Boone County has some great golf courses. But that was started in the beginning by Andy Jolly.
Right.
And across the state. And, you're gonna be commended for doing that. And you tell the folks that's involved that I'm right here on television, I'm gonna say, if you want me to come over tonight and sing my old Kentucky home, I'll be glad to do it for Terry Jolly.
Yeah.
And, but I'm gonna do it at, we might as well get a little plug in here for, Jerry Peluso, the mayor of Newport, who's done a great job, and I love Jerry. And, he's got, I think, 2 more years on his term, then they have to step down as the mayor of a second-class city. But, he's done a great job, and, they're gonna have 2 honorees that I know he told me about, and that's, tonight, or well, not tonight, Thursday night, that's June 7th.
Okay, so
When
this
it
is the
starts.
Italian Fest?
This is the Italian Festival, and they're gonna honor Frank Peluso, who's the city commissioner there for a long time, and then a fellow by the name of John Santini. Now, I don't know if you remember John or not, but he's one of the people that's been involved with the Italian Festival for 27 years.
Wow.
And so they're honoring him, on throughout the week. Now, the opening ceremonies, folks, I have the good fortune of singing my old Kentucky home for them on the opening ceremonies, which will be Thursday, on June the 7th, and that will be at 7 o'clock. The opening ceremonies would, now they open the gates there at 5 o'clock, and it's free. So if you wanna have a good time, and having traveled through Italy with our Europe series, traveling through Europe by train, going all through Italy and up to Rome and Naples and Venice and Florence and all the cities over there, we had a great time. Some of you have seen our shows on television with that. Come on out for the Italian Festival and get a real taste of Italian food, and also the great citizens of Newport and Campbell County that have helped to organize and put that on. And I know you promoted too, don't you,
Oh,
Jay?
yeah. Now, one of the things you have to notice when you visit with them will be all the Italian names. And, you know, none of that's made up. I've had everybody in city government and a lot of the prominent citizens, they have a name like Gaduli or Peluso or Santini or something that sounds pretty Italian to me.
Yes, and the Pete Wagner Band is always there playing, and
Yeah.
I love that. What great music, right on the riverfront. What a beautiful riverfront. I tell you what, you can hardly find a place to go any more beautiful than on the riverfront all across northern Kentucky. It's one of our great selling points, the gateway to the south. And it's really something that all the citizens who see this show, if you are traveling through in the northern Kentucky area, get down to the riverfront, enjoy the good food from the restaurants down there, and for our festivals, whether it be in Kenton County, Boone County, or Campbell County. Now, Judge, we're gonna come back here to our program with you today. Now, it's no secret that I think a lot of you. And
And I say that because I started off working back many years ago, and with Goodwill Industries being their resident counselor there, working with handicapped children and Special Olympics. And we worked to get the ADA passed, American Disabilities Act, when I was with Congressman John Breckinridge. And you and your career came along about how many years ago? 19, 20 years?
34 or 35 years I've held some local elected office, starting with a city council stint back in 1983, I think I got elected the first time.
1983, well see, that's right after Breckinridge and that time period there.
Right, but prior to that, I worked in Republican politics from the time I was a little kid. I didn't really have a chance. My father and most of his friends were involved in a thing called the Committee of 500 back in the day. When we had gambling and the Cleveland Syndicate to worry about in northern Kentucky.
Absolutely.
And George Ratterman was running for sheriff, and
I remember.
Yeah.
Bud Johnson and Henry Jose.
Yes, sir.
On the Committee of 500. And, you know, those same fellows, this is ironic, but those same fellows, probably your father too, as well as Glenn Schmidt and Ben Bernstein of El Greco's, and the El Greco's restaurant, later of the Mike Fink's restaurant down on the river. Those are the same fellows that came to me about in the 1970s and asked me to lead the Operation Lock, they called it, Sunday liquor sales, because we were losing benefits to Cincinnati and to other areas with our restaurants. And it was almost a sad thing, because some of the places felt like they needed to serve alcoholic beverages with their food. Mm-hmm. And the reasons being is that their competition did. Right. And they were losing business across the river, and they asked me, an old teetotaling Baptist, if I would head up that campaign for them. That was Bill Schmedige, I remember, and Dick Schilling, and Mike Fink, or Mike Weber, and Claude, Bud Johnson, and Henry Jose, and the Committee of 500. And we ran that. I said, okay, I'll do it here, but I won't do it in Louisville, and I won't do it anyplace else in the state. And so we did it, and we passed it by about 72% of the vote. And it was your father that was a part of that organization, that when John Breckinridge was Attorney General, he actually brought his office to Newport and set it down in Newport, and worked out of that Newport area, working with the federal authorities and to try to clean up things there that had gotten out of hand with the syndicate and with the organized crime. Wouldn't you say that was a great thing?
Absolutely right.
Now,
I just have to tell you this, though, it sounds like a long time ago. People need to know that we're still just kids.
Yeah.
It wasn't so long after all.
No, wasn't so long after all. And I'll tell you what a difference that made, and I'll tell you what a difference Campbell County now is from those days. When I first ran for statewide office, to break the ice, and being a government teacher, I knew that in some areas of the state, northern Kentucky was sort of looked at as, I wouldn't call it Sin City, but it had that aroma on it. Yes. Back in those days. And it was very difficult for any candidate from northern Kentucky. You ask Andy Jolly, you ask Otwell Rankin, you ask Ed Fresney, you ask Lambert Hale. I can name them all that were good local candidates, right, but could not get entrenched down in the western part of the state or the central part of the state. And so you had to really build and change that reputation and show people that, hey, we don't have horns up here in northern Kentucky. And that was a real problem in the beginning when you figured out, how do you get in with those folks and get them to trust you? And that's been a bit of a problem for northern Kentucky all along because of the way we're set up. And unfortunately, with the Democratic Party, and I'm not knocking the Democrats here, but I'm just saying in reality, at one time, you had the western part of the state had like 20-1 registered Democrats. And so when you got into a primary, you had to get yourself known down there to even win, to get in to be one of the constitutional office holders. And it took me we hadn't had a single person elected statewide for 70 years until I was elected superintendent of education. And then later, Trey Grayson came on, was elected Secretary of State. And now the parties have sort of switched where the state is now, I would say, pretty solidly Republican. And Northern Kentucky has really changed. They've got, when you look at Northern Kentucky today, you're really looking at more of a conservative Republican area, and the voter registration has almost changed completely. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was always a little confounded growing up with the political facts on the ground, because it was 2.5 to 1 in Campbell County, 2.5 to 1 registration advantage for Democrats over Republicans back in the 70s.
Yeah.
When Jim Bunning began his political career, and I worked on some of his campaigns, and yet the people were really very conservative.
Yes.
And across the state, the federal delegation oftentimes was Republican, or well, you know, we had some great senators from Kentucky, nationally known, and they were Republicans.
Yes.
So it's almost as though it wasn't really a party thing in Kentucky. It was more like a tribal thing. You know, you're
Right.
born into a family, traditionally Democrat, and that's the way things are. And if you want to vote in a primary, you need to be a Democrat, because there isn't very much action on the Republican side. That's the way it used to be. Now, I think things have changed, and certainly the party registration is different, and you have, it's still close, but majority Republicans across Northern Kentucky. But the conservative tradition that's been there all along is still active, and you don't really find enormous disagreement between a Republican versus a Democrat in Northern Kentucky on local government, certainly.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's easy for us to work together, because there are similar philosophies and
Sort of where you were born.
approaches. Right.
Yeah.
Even to this day, that's the way we get things done.
Very true. Now, looking at all this, go back into, where'd you go to high school?
Highlands High School.
Highlands High School. That's where June went to high school. My goodness gracious. I'm surrounded by.
Yeah.
That's a little
Cake
Simon.
eaters, you're surrounded by cake eaters.
That's right. Well, I love them. And I just always have to remember this here just a little bit. Back when I was running track, the 100, 220, and 440 for Simon Kenton, and at that time I was the fastest in the high school. And I never will forget, we went over to one big track meet, and Highlands was there, the track meet. And I walked out there and had my little skivvies on, or whatever you wanna call them, my little warm-ups on. And here comes a fellow by the name of Denny Sprouse. I never will forget it, from Highlands. And boy, he was spruced up, the best looking clothes you ever seen for a track star.
Mhm.
And I was so mesmerized by him, I think I sit there and watched him come out of the blocks before before I took off. But he was fast, and he whipped me right there, mighty good. And I thought to myself, man, they look like a professional team coming out here. And
That's
they were
funny.
coached well,
Yeah.
and they had good parental support. And you know, that's what's made them the good school that they are. They have involvement. They have good teachers, and they have good involvement by their community. And their parents follow them, not just in their sports, but in their academics. And I really commend Highlands, and also Beechwood. And in fact, now, all the schools of Northern Kentucky are actually doing better.
Yes, absolutely.
And we're doing better with our salaries, teacher salaries.
Mhm.
Now, we've got some problems downstate with what to do about the pensions.
Right.
That's an issue for not just teachers, but for state employees, government employees, and everybody. How do you deal with these things? But you went to Highlands High School, and after you left there, what'd you have? Did you go right into law school?
I went
Did
to a
you go-
little school in Ohio, Denison University, probably 2,000 students, and that suited my need just fine at the time. I've always loved Ohio State. A lot of my relatives went to school there, but that was too big for me. I was looking for something smaller where I could be nurtured, and I probably needed a little bit of that. I'm painfully shy, so much better to be in a small
Atmosphere.
school. when I graduated Denison, then I did go to Ohio State to law school. And, I'm not sure I ever saw them win a football game, if you can believe that or not. They had a lottery system, and you didn't get a full set of tickets at that time to the games. You'd get like half the home games, which might only be, you know, 3,
Mhm.
2 or 3 in those days.
And you went to law school there, and how many brothers and sisters did you have?
2 of each, 2 brothers, 2 sisters. I'm the oldest.
Are any of them in government or politics at all?
Not really. I mean, you get drawn into politics if you have somebody in the family that's in, because, you know, you're constantly being asked to help them do work.
Right. Well, and your mom and dad, you say your dad was active in civic things.
They're both gone now, but I told you a little bit about my dad. His best friend was a guy named Jack Cook, who worked with Jack Steinman, and if you know Northern Kentucky Republican Party politics, those 2 guys were at the center of it for many, many years.
Well, they were the ones that got behind Bunning, I think, too, didn't they?
Yes.
I remember going to some meetings over there with them there.
Oh, you got it. So, that was one set of influences. My mom got involved in campaign work too, because her best friend was Edie Cook, Jack's wife, and they were campaign managers in all the Bunning campaigns early on. So, as I say, I didn't really have much choice, and I all I had to do was listen to what was being said around the dinner table, and I was hooked.
Isn't that Mary Bunning wonderful?
Oh, she's fabulous.
She is fabulous.
Yeah.
I just love her to pieces anytime I've seen her out anywhere. And the one son that's a judge is a mighty fine
Yeah,
man.
David is.
Does a good job too. Well, so you went to law school, and then did you come back and practice law at all, or?
Not really. I wasn't too certain what I wanted to do, other than stay in the Cincinnati area. My grandfather had a little insurance business, and he said, "Why don't you come back and work with me until you decide?" And what is that? Almost 40 years later, I still haven't decided. I sort of got into the insurance business with my grandfather on my mother's side, who was just a wonderful guy. He was raised in a family of Quakers, and he was just a gentle soul and an old soul. And almost everybody, I mean, you hear people say this about a lot of people, but in his case it was actually true, that just about everybody that knew him respected him for the good person that he was, and he was always and obviously a servant in the community's best interest. He was one of the founding board members at St. Luke Hospital in Fort Thomas, and was always doing something civic in the way of civic work. So he was a great influence on my life. He had I for a time thought him naive, because he had some of the Quaker teachings that he grew up with, and he would, you know, offer advice about the world based on that background. And I was thinking to myself, well, you know, somebody's got to be a little more aggressive than that and protect us all, or things are not going to work. But most of the things he told me, I have found to be true, and really a good influence.
What's the roots of your faith? Do you?
Well, now that's kind of entertaining, because I graduated with a degree in economics from Denison, but I had enough hours in religion for a major as well. And I took more classes in that subject matter than anything else, as it turned out. And there was a gentleman there, his name was Walter Eisenweiss, and he was a German who fought in the German army in World War II. And he was the perfect guy to teach a religion class, because many people don't think about what comes after, or think about God, unless they're threatened a little bit. You know, you get into your own thing, and you're
put God on the back burner.
That's right. But if you're called to active duty in the German army and you're sent to the Russian front, God has your full attention.
I would say so.
Yeah, well, that's what happened to this guy. And he had just an amazing life. He was studying with some of the most prominent Protestant theologians of the century. And a guy named Heidegger, a guy named Tillich, and they were sort of foundational in Protestant theology worldwide. So that was his focus of study. He was a little too sassy when he was taken in the army. He had some things to say about the political situation in Germany, and they sent him to the Russian front at the earliest opportunity. He's lucky he wasn't killed, and curiously enough, he was a prisoner of war. He was captured. The Russians turned him over to the Americans, and his treatment did not improve. We were not real. He was in a prison ship, on a prison ship in the Mediterranean Ocean, and wasn't particularly well treated. Then he was repatriated. He goes back home, and he starts seeing all these care packages. And the United States had control of a pretty good sized chunk of the country. It was divided among the Allies to oversee things, and he was impressed with the Americans and decided he'd come over here and learn more about it.
Oh, how wonderful.
And while he was here, he became a religion professor, and I'm just, that's a long, involved way of telling you that there's another influence in my life, and how I learned about the Judeo-Christian tradition, because he was an incredible scholar. He knew 11 languages. We used to tease, he knew like 11, well, no, he knew 14 languages, but 11 of them were dead languages. And he could read original texts.
Isn't that's amazing?
Interpret, yeah.
Well, that was a huge influence on your life then. And do you still go to church pretty regularly now? Or?
I'm not a big churchgoer, but I am a deep thinker when it comes to stuff like that. I'm awestruck often.
Well, God's in your heart.
Yes.
Jesus is your Savior. And I always tell everybody, now you folks have heard that out here before. When Jesus knocks on your door, like he did with your uncle, right?
Yes.
When he knocks on your door, it's a very simple thing. You just invite him into your heart. Saved by grace. Somebody said, well, don't you have to do good works? No, you're not saved by your works. You're saved by God's Son dying on the cross for you, and saved by grace. But if you are saved, you'll do good works. That's the key to it, though. But you have to recognize that God will He'll knock on the door, but we, hearing, he won't open the door, though, until you reach down and open it and say, come on into my heart. And I know, Steve, you've done that and invited him into your heart. You're not just a worker of good deeds, but you're a carrier of this Holy Spirit.
Well, you have to try to do that.
Yes, you have to try to do that. And do the
Sometimes
best
you
can.
fail.
Sure. We all come short of the glory of God, they say.
Yes, sir.
And like I said, one of the elections here, somebody was really attacking some poor lady that was running, and I thought the world of her, and she'd ask everybody to forgive her, but they just, sometimes voters are a little slow to forgive. And, but I'll tell you one thing, I admired how she ran her race, and I always remind everybody, when the lady was at the well, Jesus said, let he who is without sin cast the first stone. And sometimes we want to be too quick to jump on somebody that makes the mistake in life. But when you're in government politics, you are out there, the spotlight is on you, and regardless of what party you're in, Independent, Tea Party, Democrat, Republican, they're all Americans, and they're all trying to do what's best.
Absolutely. And you have to criticize ideas because you have to evaluate ideas in the process of selecting a proper direction. But that doesn't mean it needs to be personal.
Right. Try to stay away from the personal attacks is what I suggest to everybody. Now, so we found out here where your heart and your spirit is and how you got headed in that direction. And then you set up your the company you work with an uncle there. What, are you still with that company, same name you all have? What's the name of the company?
Well, it's, my grandfather's name was Paul Snyder, so it was Snyder Insurance. We bought another firm, and eventually, after my grandfather died, and he died in '98, we're doing business as Pendery Insurance. So I have, that as an outside business interest, and then, of course, I'm the judge executive, which takes a little time.
More time
I try
than-
explaining to people, here's what you don't understand, you know, there's 9 to 5 and you clock out. That happens some places, but that's not what happens when you're in a position like that. And actually, most of the important things that you do as a judge executive are outside of the office. If you have any sense at all, you hire a professional administrator to run the day-to-day operation of the government and discharge your statutory responsibility to do that. You provide oversight, but you have to be outward looking. The things we get done in Northern Kentucky, we get done because we cooperate together. So, you know, like the Chamber of Commerce or Triad or TANK or the Convention and Visitors Bureau or
OKI.
You know, OKI. There are probably a couple dozen agencies that spend so much more money and have so much more influence than any one county government. You've got to be involved in those things and influential within those organizations if you're gonna move your agenda forward.
Absolutely.
And almost all of them are cooperations of multiple jurisdictions. You go to an OKI meeting, there are 120 people in the average executive committee meeting, and 70% of them are elected officials. And they're tasked with figuring out how to plan for transportation and where the federal government should spend its money. They provide advice to the state about where they should spend their money to keep things working right. And so I tell people, you know, you don't have any idea. You picture going to work in the morning and clocking out and going home and watching TV and being with your family. What you're doing is you're going to all these meetings during the day and weekends and nights.
Still more meetings and or events that you're.
Yeah, so that you absolutely have to commit yourself. In my own personal case, you know, family should come first. You've got to find time for your family, but you've got all these other things to concern yourself with.
Now, the judge executive position itself is sort of a term that when they changed the original judge actually judged things, judge events, people,
Right.
problems.
Yeah, there was a judicial function.
Right.
In the
But
old
that no
days.
longer is there,
Yeah.
except,
Right.
you certainly are a judge in many things with philosophy and with policy, but, no criminal cases or disobedient cases or anything like that. But they kept the term judge with it because it'd been there so long. But the executive, now that is a very important term because, the greatest compliment paid to me by one of my former teachers, Bob Taylor, who was an attorney who's gone on to heaven now. He said, John, one of the things I admire about you the most when I've watched you and I know your abilities, I said, well, thank you, Bob. And he said, was that you've been smart enough to hire people smarter than you.
Yes.
And talk about that a little bit.
That is the point. There are 200 people in my county government, and my county government is much smaller than Kenton or Boone County. And so there are 200 over here, and there's me. Who's gonna get more work done? So the very first and most important thing you have to do is surround yourself with people who are capable in areas that you're not, that are as smart as you can find them and as dedicated as you can get them. And you hope in all those things they surpass you, because if you're able to do that, then you've really done a great thing for your
And things
taxpayers.
Yeah,
Right.
Absolutely.
So that's one thing that I'm proudest of. There were very good people working in Campbell County government when I first got into office. And that started a tradition that we have followed. There we had a raft of retirements in the last few years in key positions, and you know, we were able to fill those positions with wonderful, capable younger people. It's part of the natural process. But over time, the quality of the organization has only been improved, and we have capability now that is, I think, truly impressive. And having been around for as many years as I have, far from being a detriment, I would tell you it's an advantage, because you have a perspective that enables you to pick these things out and see where the world is headed and whether or not the changes are for the better, and how our taxpayers are benefited, and it's all good. I hope that we don't look back someday and say to ourselves that, wow, the late 2010s were a golden age for Northern Kentucky. That'll mean we've fallen off the pace, right?
Right.
If we look back fondly. I'm hoping that we can keep it going, but I can tell you that there's never been a better time to live in Northern Kentucky. The quality of life is at a peak. Employment, amenities, the quality of governance, the quality of all the different agencies that serve the public. Everything has gotten better, and I'm just hoping it continues on that trajectory.
Well, I hope so too, and I want to take you back a few years, because one of the key things that you have in Campbell County is your university, or our university, or the Commonwealth's University,
Right.
Northern Kentucky University. And I can remember when I was president of the student body, 1968, the year that it was founded. And thanks to former Governor Louis B. Nunn, great friend of mine and a great man. And also, I want to give due credit to Art Schmidt in Campbell
Yes.
County, Don Johnson in Campbell County back in those days, and also Bill Donemeyer, the Democrat, and one of the key Democrats who actually introduced the legislation, Philip King, a state representative from Kenton County. And Ken Harper, Clyde Middleton played roles, particularly in Chase Law School. But as the president of the student body there at the community college, and our student government and the fraternities, we were charged with the task by Walt Dunleavy of the Chamber of Commerce and other friends, Phil Talifero, by the way, who had his hand in all of that very deeply, helping, and taught up there at the community college. Philip King, whose daughter, by the way, is running for family court judge, who I supported and helped to try to help, because frankly, she's an excellent candidate and she won the primary. That's a good sign, I'd say. And but the important thing is that Philip King introduced that legislation, and he got the Democrats involved behind it with Wendell Ford and Julian Carroll at that time, who were big Democrats in the state, very popular. And then you had Louis Nunn, who was the governor, first Republican governor in 20 or 30 years, or something like that, and or maybe longer. And he was for it, and his son Harold DeMarcus, and Harold DeMarcus' son John DeMarcus, they got together was the thing. United we stand, divided we fall. That's our state motto, and that's the key to getting anything done in the state. And when his daughter